Community Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ahmed Khalid and Ahmed Al-Hamamsi from Middle East. Our Global S&OP Community Podcast mission is to build a global community from supply chain, marketing, trade marketing, sales and finance all over the world, where everyone's voice could be heard and listened. Every week, we host a new episode with great thought leader in the S&OP industry. We believe that one word, one story, or one conversation could open up the light in the screen of your consciousness and you'll never be the same again. We discuss hot and trending topics with our subject matter experts by asking the right questions that uncover their valuable experience in our show. You can visit our website ahmedkhaled.co. Stay tuned every week with our Global S&OP Community podcast.
Hello, and welcome everyone. It's our first episode of the Global S&OP Community in 2022. So happy New Year to everyone, and we're so happy to be back after 2 weeks, and we are back in January with some great guests. So stay tuned with us. It's our Global S&OP Community, of course, as you know, knowledge that you don't not find in books. Of course, we're making a community out not only of supply chain experts, but marketing, sales, trade marketing, finance, and everyone voice will be listened to and heard. Of course, and this is your show. It's the audience show. We always wait for your comments, for your questions. We are so happy to be with you here in 2022. And Ahmed with us today from different country. Ahmed, how are you doing, my friend?
Thank you, Hamamsi. Welcome again, just for our beautiful people who are listening and watching us around the globe. And let me see this moment especially and wish you that 2022 will be your years. Uh, a year of prosperity, a year of honor, of glory, of trophies, or just a year of positivity. We wish you just from our deep, deep heart that all you dream comes true just in 2022. And in fact, today we have a very, very, very special episode. And I'm sure that you can guess why it's a very special episode. Actually, because we have a very inspiring leader who will reveal a very hot topic today. And our topic today will be around how to win with the retailers. And let me speak about this briefly. In B2C business, the main focus is mainly spotted on the end consumer. That's why you will find all marketing campaigns conversions focus on the end consumer, as the organization will sell directly to the end consumer. But let's shift this focus into from B2C into B2B. The game will be totally changed drastically, especially if we talk about the FMCG sector. And the game here is very aggressive. Yes, you are, at the end of the day, you have to ensure that your products on shelf all the time are there. And it could be picked by the consumer or the shopper at the same time. But there is, in the B2B business, I would say there is a hidden element here, which is the retailer. And the retailer will always buy from your organization the products and ensuring the products are always on the shelf. Now the question, how can we set the right strategies that can help the retailer and the customer to be just one, having a customer acquisition. Number two, having let's say a customer retention, and especially with the era that we are living in. And if you focus a little bit, you will see that in our era right now, you'll find a lot of competition is everywhere and almost at all levels. So, what could be the right strategies that can nourish your CRM, or I would say the customer relationship management? And today, here it comes, the role of our inspiring leader today. And this inspiring leader will reveal all of those strategies to all of us today. Our inspiring guest today is Nannis Gadarab. Nannis Gadarab is the sales vice president at Unilever Canada. Nannis joined Unilever Mashrik 24 years ago as supply chain management trainee in Egypt. After 5 years of gaining unbeatable experience, I would say, in the supply chain, end to end, something has pulled her from the supply chain to another function. That thing was the customer and consumer love. That's why she decided to move from the supply chain and discover what is inside the business and what is the business about. She played many roles in sales, marketing, and trade marketing in that period for across 10 countries. That's why our podcast, if you see our vision and our podcast is all about collecting and collaborating all of those functions, which is something very solid about our guest today, Nanise Gadrab. In 2007, she decided to move to Canada and leave her purpose there. Her purpose is making the impossible possible while inspire other people or the people around her to be the best version of themselves. Nanis, she lives by three F's: faith, family, and fitness. Her customer love and her consumer love pulled her in 2018 to be recognized as a star woman in Canada grocery. So, may I ask you please to welcome with us our great thought leader today, Nanis Gadrab. And before doing or just introducing Nanis Gadrab, let's give her the
Round of
amazing
applause,
applause. Please, please.
please. Hello.
Hello, hello, and thank you. Thank you for the incredible introduction and the incredible thank you. And I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you. Thank you to Ahmed and Ahmed, and thanks for everyone who's joining us. Happy New Year! I hope 2022 is a year of growth and positive energy, and of course, a big shout out for everyone of my friends in the Middle East and the Gulf area, Levant and Egypt. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for joining us today. Of course, this is some little words about you. Of course, we know that your value is a lot more than that, and we're thrilled to have you today. And all our guests, I see a lot of our guests already are coming in.
Yes,
Let's welcome some of our
definitely.
guests, please, Ahmed.
De- Definitely. We have our friend Kim. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much
Okay.
for tuning in, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Our lovely friend Muhammad Al Baz
Muhammad. Thank
is
you,
saying
Muhammad.
hello. Thank you so much. He's tuning in from Saudi Arabia. Thank you, Muhammad. Our
Jenny
friend
Gold.
Jenny Gold. Hello,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have our lovely friend Denzel. Hello,
Hi,
everyone. Thank
hi,
you so
Denzel.
much for your time. Our lovely friend Amr Turkestani. Happy New Year, and
Hi,
thank you so
hi.
much for
Thank you.
tuning
Happy
in.
New Year.
Can you guess who is here? Hassan Gimei.
Hi, Hassan.
Hello, guys. Thank you so much, Hassan, for tuning in. The amazing Hassan. So we have our friend Jenny Gold. Happy New Year, Ahmed. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
tuning
Thank
in
you so
and
much.
giving us your valuable time. Our friend Ignar, happy Sunday and happy New Year. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
great time and for tuning in, Ignar. So we have Alexandria Rosa. Hello, family from OU. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have great people today, very great and
Yes.
amazing engagement. Our friend Ali Hazim, nice topic. Thank you so much for tuning in. our brother Aziz. Happy Sunday, bro
Hi,
Ahmed. Thank you
Aziz.
so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, we have great people also. Our friend Mahmoud Bari, amazing start. Thank you so much,
Thank you. Thank you
Mahmoud.
so much for tuning in, Mahmoud.
Yes, and our friend
Shazama.
Shazama. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much
Oh, thank
for
you so
tuning
much.
in as well. Last but not least, our
Yes.
friend Ahmed Gurnas. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Ahmed.
for tuning in,
Thank you for
Ahmed.
coming in.
So definitely, it's a pleasure to have you today, Nanis. And really, I keep saying this. It's a glory to have you today in our show, and because your legacy is still there in Egypt after even you left Egypt, still there because of your inspirational thoughts and your great values, how you lead and how you give it all to people. But let me seize this moment and let's explore and reveal all the great values that you have today and your, I would say, purpose and your values related to customer and consumer love. And one of the questions that we need to ask you about it, which is in the era that we live in, which is we live in mostly, especially FMCG in the B2B businesses environment, including hundreds of retailers and customers and thousands of stores, and I could say ship to points. How to build a retail strategy that could be aligned with the business strategy?
Yeah, Ahmed, it's a great question. And first, thank you for, I'm so humbled for this introduction. So thank you
Thank
for the incredible introduction. Very, very humbled to hear all of that. Strategy is my favorite subject. So I'm happy that that's the first question. And definitely, you're absolutely right. I think strategy is an important topic, and it's important to get it right to be able to differentiate yourself and win in market. So I always like to think about three questions: the why, the what, and the how. And I'll explain in a second what does that mean. We'll start with the why because you always start with the why, as Simon Sinek always say. But it is the purpose. It's the purpose behind everything you're trying to do, and this is the starting point, not only for organizations but also because of the consumers. So all the big organizations now have, very quickly knew that purpose is such an essential part because it defines where are you going, the destination you want to go to. So I think it's important to define your purpose and stick to that purpose.
Mhm.
And for example, like in Unilever, we say sustainability. It's all about sustainability, making sustainability a commonplace is the purpose. And everything Unilever does anywhere in all the countries are centered toward that. A company like, for example, Apple, it's all about the user experience, right? Like that's an innovation. So anyone
Yes.
who's using Apple, that's what you see. A company like Amazon, their purpose is to be the Earth's most consumer centric organization. So that's their purpose. Everything they do is really driven by this purpose. And I'm talking about consumers as well, because what we're seeing is that consumers are looking for brands and organization to
Mhm.
have a purpose and to drive beyond the brands, to drive something bigger and more important. One of the research that we have found recently in North America, and I'm sure it applies to everywhere in the world as well, is that 60% of consumers are saying that I will not buy my favorite brand. I will not buy it if I feel that the company that producing this brand
Mhm.
are not taking a stand, right? Like they're not taking a stand, whether it's environment, in human rights, in big topics. We always say companies with purpose last, and people with purpose thrive, and brand with purpose
Mhm.
grow. And that's important. So I think you have to first start with the why, which is the purpose.
Mhm.
Um, Linked with the purpose as well, the values. And I know you will tell me, oh,
Mhm.
I'm asking about the strategy. What is the relationship between strategies and values? But what I have found from my experience is that it's very important for your team to sit together, to invest the time to define the values that describes you as a team or as an organization. Um, Values could be integrity, could be holding people accountable, it could be diversity and inclusion, it could be about being bold, being creative, going outside of the box. And what is important about values, and it does take time. So it's about investing the time to do that, but it's very valuable because every time you have your strategy, you go back to the value and you ask yourself, if my values are to be bold, to be a bold organization, is my strategy showing enough boldness? If no, let me go back and change my strategy. You ask yourself, I said that one of our values as a team is diversity and inclusion. Is my strategy today that I build, is it inclusive or not? Is it diverse or not? And if not, go back and change the strategy. So the values will drive if your strategy is moving in the right direction or not. So that's number one. Number two is the what, which is actually a few goals that you will put together and say, what are the goals? What are the objectives that will allow me to achieve my purpose? And this will be like the body of the strategy. So the core or the purpose is in the core. If you have a circle, purpose in the core, and then you have the what, and then you have the how, right? In the what, one of the things I learned throughout the years that you need to involve everyone. You need to be inclusive. So if I'm building a sales strategy or a customer development strategy, I invite my finance colleagues, my supply chain colleagues, my marketing colleagues. They are all sitting there, and you will say, this is a CD or a sales strategy. Why are you inviting all the partners? Well, you will be surprised how much input and how much feedback and how much value they will bring to the table, because you're now thinking about the end to end and you're being inclusive. And to your point earlier, every voice is being heard and every idea, and the great ideas are coming from everywhere. So including your partners, your stakeholders is very important. Including the customer is very important. So we usually go to our retailers and say, what are the gaps that we have? What are the blind spots? What do you think if we're re-looking at our strategies? What are the things in the future that we need to be, aware of? What do you think the success in the future will look like? So getting the feedback from multiple people is super important before you decide the what. And then the last piece is the how, and how is your execution arm. And they always say that without strategy, the execution is aimless, and without execution, the strategy is useless, right? So strategy and execution go hand in hand. You can't just execute something without a solid strategy, and you can have the best strategy ever. If you can't execute it, then it's great pen on the paper, but it's not really something that will take you to the next level. So I think that's about it. The other good quote that I always hear is that they always say culture eats strategy for breakfast. I don't know if you heard that expression before.
Yes.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast, and that's why it's important that you start with the purpose and the value, because your values of the team or organization will define your culture. And if you have a strong culture and you have a good strategy and good execution, no one can beat you. You will just win with customers. You will win with consumers. You will just be a winner in market. So I think it's important to relate all things together. And I know when I started my career, I was like, okay, focus on strategy, focus on strategy, focus on strategy. But reality is you have to focus on values. You have to focus on people. You have to focus on execution in order to have the right strategy.
Amazing. Of course, Ahmed, please, a round of applause.
For sure.
You make me laugh. That's great.
Really, because it's the answer is very inclusive, and the way that you are spreading your ideas, it's amazing, because really this level of transparency and including all people on the table, and like the internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. This is the most important thing to win, I think, and I think we miss this, and most of organizations miss this, and they go making a strategy, like they close on themselves, or top management close on themselves to develop the strategy without involving everybody. So that's why here you deserve really a round of applause for this kind of thinking, and really that's the right thing, or the right way to do business, I think.
I think the other
Definitely,
one that you
Nannis.
just reminded me with Hamamsi, just before we move to this point,
Yeah.
I think you reminded me with an important point as well. When I started, you're right, like strategy was few people in a room
Yeah.
doing things, nobody knows what they're doing.
Yes.
And you can't be inclusive if you have 2 3 people. I mean, it's important as well to have all levels of the organization. It's important to listen from your millennials, your genzennials, the people who has the experience, because everyone brings something new to the table. So diversity is not necessarily only the diversity of gender, but it's
Yeah.
also the diversity of experience.
Mhm.
Even if you have zero experience, that's by itself is an experience. And it's something that you have because you bring fresh eyes and you bring fresh blood. But I think the other piece as well is diversity of thoughts, which is very important. If we
Mhm.
all are thinking the same and we're sitting in one room and we're deciding this is the brilliant strategy, we're also thinking the same. Like we need to have different people who are thinking
Different
differently
views.
to challenge
Yes.
us. And then the last piece about strategy as well, if you allow me, is also one of the hardest thing about strategy that I've seen lots of teams fail because of, is that successful strategy is about making choices. I
Yeah.
think one of the big mistakes
Mhm.
we all do is we try to do so much. Like we have 20, 30, 40 things in a strategy that we're trying to execute. Guess what? We will never be able to execute it because we will never be able to focus and we will never have the resources and money and budgets. Like even if you are a big organization, you will never have all these resources and budget to do it.
Mhm.
So one of the hardest things in the strategy that you decide what's in scope and what out of scope, and to take some tough decisions, because sometimes the things out of scope are very appealing and very interesting and things that we all want to do. But you have to take the tough decision and say, I will only focus on the top 4 or 5. When I get them right, I will start embedding more. But for now, sometimes it's tough. I know we all try to go into, oh, this is shiny, this is great, this is like amazing, let's do this and this and this and this. That's, in my opinion, the first step for failure. So we need to avoid that
100%.
and prioritize.
Yes.
100%. I believe, Nanis, it's all about clarity. Sometimes that we can put some fancy stuff on a word or just or a paper, but when it comes to reality, you will observe really that the leadership quality of the organization when they set the right strategy. When you come at all levels, either at a strategical or tactical or operational level, when you go and speak with people about what is the real strategy of the business or the organization or the function itself, by this way you will understand if the leader is just very clear about the strategy or not. Because when you come and ask here and there, you will find everyone is overwhelmed and nobody understand the bigger picture. And here it comes the role of the strategy of the organization. Strategy of the organization, as you said, that we have many strategies at all levels, but at the same time how you will be very clear with your people. This is the essence of the leadership and the strategy of the organization itself. So yeah,
True.
I'll,
Uh,
if you allow me,
I
we
think we
have
started to get
the
some
first.
questions. Yeah. Let's take a
Yes, we
question
have
from
great
our audience.
question. I think it's a little bit operational, but it's a very nice question. Our friend Muhammad Albaz is asking, in case of stock limitation and you cannot cover the top 10 retailers, what's the best way to distribute the stocks?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mohammed. Thank you for asking it. And with the pandemic, it's very relevant because
Yeah.
in the pandemic, I think every organization everywhere, even retailers themselves, have found some limitations in their supply chain themselves. Like if they have private label or they're importing their own products, I think they have been under this. And I think there are a couple of things, Mohammed, here that I'll say. The first one is the first thing that you really have to do is be transparent with all the retailers. It's important that you are transparent with all the retailers and be proactive in the communication. And one of the things I learned during the pandemic is over communicating with retailers. Super
Mm,
important in the pandemic. They will appreciate your proactivity, your transparency. Sometimes we're worried about bad news. Oh, this is bad news. How am I going to bring it to the customer? But you know what, in the situations we are in, it's a pandemic, there are lots of issues, and they will appreciate more that you come to them and say, listen, here's the situation I am in. I am trying as much as possible to be to support my retailers and to support my consumers, and this is absolutely the number one thing that everyone has to do. But transparency and lots of communication and lots of debate is very important. I think that some of the strategy, Mohammed, that work is one, and I'm not saying all of them could work, and you need to assess where this, your organization and where you are. But to me, I mean, it's important to be as fair and equitable as you can be between your retailers. So together with between sales and supply chain, they need to sit together and figure out how is being fair and equitable looks like. If that means that you have to put things on allocation, for example, then you need to put things on allocation or stock in allocation or whatever supply chain tactics. You have to be fair and equitable. I think it's important to be fair and equitable, and it's important to ensure that your retailers and your customers are being treated well in that bad decision. It will mean that everyone will take a little bit. Nobody will get 100%, which is fine, because you know what, it's a tough situation and we are all in that tough situation. The other piece that I've seen lots of organizations have done, Muhammad, is around being selective on their items that they are producing. So many organizations said, I'll define the top, I don't know, 200, 300, 400 items that represent whatever, 50% of my portfolio. And this is all what I'm going to produce for the event of the pandemic, for example, because these are the high selling. It will simplify the supply chain. It will allow supply chain to have less turnarounds and less, cleaning up of machines and so on. And it will allow a better efficiency. It might also mean that you need specific items in terms of raw material and packaging material that you need. So many organizations have done that and just focused on the top, whatever, 50, 60% of the items, just to give themselves a little bit of space. And from a consumer perspective, I think the consumer as well appreciated that, because usually the consumer are looking, especially in a pandemic timing, they are looking at like the top sellers or the top items. So doing this exercise very quickly and reviewing it all the time is an important one. But I will say, communicate to the consumer, to the customer, very important.
100%.
Be fair and equitable as much as possible, and then make some decisions internally about, what to produce, what to stop. Based, of course, like it will be very different based on, where's your raw material coming, where's your packaging coming, where's your factories, and all the supply chain parameters. But I think these are the three things that probably will help. And of course, I mean, it will help. It will not be ideal for sure, but it will help until everyone is going through this force majeure.
Perfect. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes. Beautiful.
Nannis.
It's all about, as you said, balance, collaboration, and transparency between with retailers and end to end. Of course, supply chain. You have to weigh your benefits, and it's about weighing and choosing trade-offs. Now we're all in a force majeure. I love your answer. Of course, it's very very clear and to the point.
Yes.
I think boring questions are coming from everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely. We'll jump into the next question. So we have Mr. Hassan Gmei. So Hassan is just asking, what are your views of the future regarding online shopping? Do you think that one day retailers will only be virtual? Shopper can shop through metaverse.
Hassan, great to see you after all these years, and I hope you and the family are doing great. And thank you for joining, Hassan. It's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you. I think it's a great question, Hassan, and definitely online shopping is a trend that is coming, and we need to be very proactive and we need to be ready for it. I can tell you now in North America, and I'm sorry, I don't know what's the numbers in Middle East, but I can tell you in North America, the pandemic for sure, tripled the market. So the market what we thought is going to take 10 years took 6 months in online. So 1 decade happening in 6 months. And of course, like pandemic, of course, has been a very tough challenge for so many of us. But in the same time, it did bring some trends, and online is one of these trends that we're seeing growing. I know in the US now, some of the categories and some of the industries, online shopping is accounting anything between 20 to 25%. So it is high. Do I think that online everything will be virtual? I don't think so. I think there will always be an importance
Hybrid.
for the physical in-store. I think the physical in-store will always be important. However, the role that the online shopping is playing is paramount and important. And I think we all need to um, I was having this discussion actually, Hassan, with one of my colleagues. We can't say I'm a traditional salesperson, I'm not going to do Omni. Every salesperson and every person in any company need to be an Omni person. Like digital literacy is becoming one of the most important skills that we all need to educate ourselves about, because that's the future and this is how the future will be. And it might take, some countries more years than others. But one of the very important things that we are seeing in North America now is that majority of the consumers are searching, even if they are in the physical store, they are searching online before they make the purchase. So you see people in the aisle, like looking in their,
Yeah.
computers, looking at their cell phones, reviewing rates and reviews, reviewing the content, looking at the pictures, and so on. So it's paramount that organizations have a world-class omni strategy. It's very important to develop the time, to invest the time and the resources behind omni and behind the development of the strategy. And it's super important as well when we talk about winning in retailers. Every retailers need support in the omni area. They need a strong and robust omni strategy. Like now rates and reviews are becoming very, very important to make a decision. So it's becoming a huge area. Like consumers, if they find bad rates and reviews, they are not buying, even for the physical in store, right? Content is becoming very important. So what message are you wanting the consumer to see? What are the content? What are the pictures? Even the quality of the pictures on, for example, your iPhone or your Android or whatever device you're using is becoming more and more important. And this is one of the things that retailers are looking for us as CPGs to invent, to have innovations, and to have clarity of strategy, and to have execution, very strong execution arm, and more importantly, to have the talents. I think the talents behind, it's a totally different conversation. It's not about rebates and, promotions and so on. It's becoming a bigger and bigger conversation, and different conversation about how do you attract consumers online. So definitely it's going to be more and more important in future. And definitely my advice is get into this wave. Like I talk to lots of people
Yeah.
who say, oh, you know what, online is only 2% of my business. So I'm not going to react now. I'll wait until it's 20% and then I'll react. I think the people who will invest ahead of the curve are the people and the organization who will win long term. I hope that answers your question, Hassan.
100%.
I'm sure it's hard. It's
I
hard to add points to what you say. So
this
yeah,
is
definitely, I
we
think
cannot
you.
interfere too much on that.
Yes.
So I can echo I would echo your voice, Nanis, in that point. And I think that many organizations nowadays they understand the importance of the e-commerce channel and the e-commerce even channel. However, they face some challenges in terms of, I would say, cost, especially when it comes that they don't have the capabilities. You will see that I would say the normal organizations they see that the e-commerce or the e-commerce channel itself, it brings negative ROI maybe at the beginning, but this is the trend. Any organization that will not take that trend will be obsolete in the near future. This is what I keep saying, because this is the normal way. As you said, it will be most probably it will be hybrid. but definitely the organizations that they focus only on their P&L and they look only into financials, they will lose definitely in the medium, even and long term, if they focus only on financials, because this is the trend, how it looks.
Yeah, I 100% I echo you. I speak as a consumer or as a customer. For me now, it's very easy to order, like you said, Nanise, using the mobile and seeing the pictures, and the coming day or the after less than 24 hours, I have my product on my door and everything is there. So you have to be online. I think now it's essential to be online. If you're not online, you may lose your whole business and credibility with the consumers.
Absolutely.
100%.
I was reading recently on the Fortune 500, the list of Fortune 500, since 2020, 52% of the companies that was in Fortune 500 disappeared in the last 20 years.
Wow.
So 52% of the companies completely disappeared. And the question is, why did they disappear? I think I know the answer, but the bigger question is, how many companies in the next 20 years will survive if the changes will continue like that? How many companies will survive? And if we continue to see 50% of companies disappearing, what does that tell you? Like, that's for me is a
Scary.
wake-up call, right? Like, it's a
Yes.
wake-up call around change is coming, and we need to
Adapt.
we need to
Adapt and
adapt,
be
we need
flexible.
to pivot, we need to change. And you know what? Like, a company like Kodak was a huge company at the time.
Hmm.
They didn't jump into the digital, photography at the time,
Yeah.
and they thought that this is not a priority. They actually did a little bit. They didn't reject it at all. Like, many people are saying Kodak rejected the digital. Actually, they did some work, but they didn't give it a priority. And to your point, Ahmed, maybe they said at the time, oh, it's not there yet. It will be bad ROI. I'm not going to invest behind it. And in the year that Kodak communicated their bankruptcy in the world, Facebook was acquiring Instagram to get everyone to share photos that are digitally in a very
Wow.
new and creative way. So, I mean, I think it's definitely a wake-up call for all of us to think about the change that's coming and how do we want to invest behind it, because I don't want any of us to be in the list of companies disappearing.
Yes. Thank you, Nanis. So we'll jump into very interesting question, and it's all about also the strategy. So how can organizations build like a joint business planning process just to drive mutual benefits between the organization and their retailer?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Ahmed. Thank you for asking that. And I think it's interesting that I think joint business planning. I think we need to change our mindset a little bit about the joint business planning. In my opinion, I have been doing now joint business planning for over 15 years, and in, in many cases and in many companies, I have seen joint business planning becoming a process. It's about checking the box. It's about the templates, right?
Hmm.
Like, show me the templates and the decks, and okay, we have done meeting number one, check the box. Okay, meeting number two, check the box. Okay, we completed the process. Thank you so much. You're great, right? And my challenge to myself and to my team and to the audience today is, how do we challenge ourselves that JBP and joint business planning is not about the process. It's about the culture, and it's about driving growth and driving results. So I do encourage everyone to think less about the process and more about the outcome of the process. And I think some of the things that I have learned personally about JVP is, one, it has to be holistic. So again, it has to involve everyone in the organization. You need your supply chain, you need your finance, you need your marketing, you need everyone to, you need your online, you need your digital and media partners to be part of the joint business planning, because their plans is so important. Like, you need to talk about shopper marketing and plans of shopper marketing. One of the things that in my experience, that experience that you will not find in the books is the first piece in JVP is ensure that you are aligned with your customer and your retailer about what's the KPIs that you are after. What does success look like? Because I can tell you, I have spent years working on growth strategies for retailers before I understood that, they're trying to make profit.
Yeah.
Or, your organization is trying to influence certain pricing, but your retailer is trying to influence inflation or deflation, or their strategy or their success, how they are looking at success is a little bit different than how your organization is looking at success. So the first thing you need to do is listen to the customer, um,
Mhm.
and ask about their goals and KPIs and align your JDP with their goals. If their goals is about driving profit ahead of sales, then this is something you need to keep in mind, right? Like, I mean, you can't drive growth and you're very happy and now they're losing profit. That's not a joint business planning. That's a one way planning. Right? So that's the one thing. The second piece is around, um, truly understand their business model as well. Like some of the business models
Mhm.
for retailers is very complicated, right? Like the way they go into the
Yes.
stores, the way how the stores are making money, what's in their P&L, what's out of the P&L. I mean, these details, in the past, I used to think, I don't need to know all these details, but actually you need to ask questions and you need to know how exactly the business model of the retailer is working, because that way you're working with them on developing something that will work for your organization, but their organization as well. Um, I think the other piece about JVP that I learned the hard way is to be flexible. I think so many times we go with, here's my proposal, I am not
Rigid
going to
mindset.
change it. It is like the whole idea about JVP is to get feedback and be flexible and tweak a little bit your plan to make it workable and to make it differentiated as well, because every retailer wants to be differentiated. And if you come with your assumption that my proposal is the best proposal, nobody can ever change it, uh, then you're just going there with a mindset of negotiation, and they have to listen to me versus uh, what flexibility can I put without changing my strategy, without changing my purpose. Of
Yeah.
Mhm.
course, the purpose is the purpose, the strategy is the strategy, but maybe there are a few tweaks and few pivots that we can do to make it workable for both sides. And then I think the other piece as well about JVP is it has to be long term. It cannot be this is what we're going to do in the next 6 months or 1 year, and then we don't know what's going to happen. I think it's important to lay some opportunities around, here's the 2-year plan, here's the 3-year plan. Things might change for sure. We are in a changing environment. I mean, who knew that COVID-19 will come and change our lives? So, I mean, we're all going to change as the consumer behavior change, but having a 3 years plan, a skeleton of a plan, and then finalize a 1 year or 6 months, and then working through the purpose and the vision of the 3 years is super important as well.
Beautiful,
Very
beautiful. Yes,
beautiful thoughts.
yes. I would just add something here, like what you said, Nanis, which is it's all about the clarity and understanding your retailers, because some people that they treat all of their retailers the same. I keep saying that it's one size all, and I keep looking from just a wider perspective or a broad perspective. But when it comes to build a customer relationship management, it really should be also intercorrelated with your organization and business strategy. And if you don't understand what's going on with your customers and your retailers, how you'll be able to convince them? And I keep saying this: if I won't convince anyone about idea about just mutual benefits, I put myself in the other way. So I ask myself, what is in it for me? And if I don't understand what is in it for me, I will never be I will not be able to convince them about that, because at the end of the day, it's a mutual benefits. There is CRM, there is a CRM, and it should be always related and just correlated together. If this bond is not mutually connected,
Yep.
there will be a link. That's why you should work on that way. Understand? I like what you said, that you should even understand their P&L, how it looks like when they allocate their assortments, the share of shelf, what is contracted, what is not contracted. All of this should be I should understand when I stay on one table, we will have a real mutual benefits that will leverage both businesses, the supplier and even the customer.
Yeah, absolutely, Ahmed. I think clarity on actions as well is very important. I do believe that joint business planning is about mutual action. So each party has a responsibility, right? And we need to be clear about what is, the supplier going to do, what is the retailer going to do, and what's our action, and hold ourselves accountable in a good way, in a trust and in a good way, and partners, right? Like we are partners. So you will do this, I will do that. If I fail to do it, you hold me accountable. If you fail to do it, I will hold you accountable. So I think this accountability and clarity of action is super important. The other big things that is going to change the way how JBP is being planned is the data, right? Like, I mean, today, especially with retailers who have loyalty data, we have millions of points of data. So data-driven analytics will become a huge advantage opportunity, and will become a huge competitive advantage for those who leverage it. And I know many retailers have invested behind data scientists and technology and artificial
Machine
intelligence,
learning, yes.
machine learning, and so on. So what is the role? My question to the audience, what's the role you're going to play? Are you going to be part of this wave or not? Because if you're not part of that wave, you might not be realized as a partner in the future, as a joint business partner in the future. So what are you going to add to this, right? Like if they have millions of data on loyalty, if they have all the machine learning, what is the piece that you will add there, and how can you partner with them on these amazing, like, I mean, today the technology and machine learning is opening up horizons that we never thought will ever exist. So how do you take a proactive action to partner in, for example, I don't know, can we forecast together, which is, by the way, part of the S&OP. And I'm a big believer that, S&OP should not be an only external process, but it has to be translated, internal process, but it has to be translated externally
Most of the
through
customers.
JBP to the customers. So, think about what projects are you, and what, learning, and what new pilots you're bringing to the table that is beyond the operations. Maybe it's about forecasting, maybe it's about promotional planning, maybe it's about using machine learning, maybe it's about data analytics and insights, which is a huge area that is growing very quickly.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you, Nannis.
that's totally great. Yes, Nannis, and it's a lot
Yes.
of values, of course, and I think the questions, as you said, is boring. Let's try to take some questions. I think we need a lot of sessions with Nannis. Really great values, and everybody's I think is enjoying from our audience.
Definitely. So we'll jump into the next question. We have our friend, our friend Inayat Karim. He's asking, how can credit recover from aggressive retailers?
How can credit be recovered from aggressive retailers? I am not sure I understand the question. How can credit be
I
recovered?
I think what I understand, maybe something is related, and
I
if
think
he can correct me, also
it's
related to the cash
finance.
flow.
Yeah, and the
Cash
cash flow.
flow, maybe because of the payment terms and the payment on time itself, and the dues in the retail side, especially after the COVID, inside the COVID-19. I think that
Yeah, the
most
financial
organizations,
crisis for some
yes,
organizations, and they are not paying on time.
everyone, yes,
Yeah,
everyone was focusing to collect all the due payments. So I think
Yeah,
that he's
yeah.
asking on that.
No, thank you for the explanation. And
yeah,
I'm guessing that so many people have been struggling with the payments for sure, and the credit, especially with everything happening. Um, we We actually didn't face lots of this challenge in North America, and maybe because it's a very modern trade market, and
Uh,
most of the retailers are big and they have strong financial. But I'm
yes.
assuming that in traditional trade and with small retailers,
Mm-hmm.
there must have been lots of challenged.
Challenges.
It's one of the tough question. I think you need to find the balance um, between how much grace period you're going to give and how much as well you're risking your organization, because as well with the pandemics, it's quite normal that you find some of the retailer disappearing completely because
Mm-hmm.
they just are unable to, unfortunately unable to take the financial hits that they have. So um, I mean, I would think that this is something that needs to be reviewed with the finance partners and figure out, how much flexibility is the organization have, and I think it will depend on the organization itself. How much flexibility do they have, and how much as well risk assessment. I think the risk assessment will
Yes.
be a
Exactly.
very
Mm-hmm.
important piece
Yeah.
to do in order to, like you don't want half of your customers to disappear, and and then you are in a very um, tough financial situation. So maybe I'm not very clear about the answer, but I think it will really depend on your market. It will really depend on your customers.
Right.
It will really depend on what guarantees you will have with these retailers longer term, right? So that would be my advice. Ahmed and Ahmed, you're
Uh,
now more in the trade
I,
and in the traditional trade than me, so you're probably
Yes, yes. No, I echo what you're saying. Of course, it's all about the risk matrix, risk analysis, and to see according to the industry and according to your business, how much is in traditional trade, how much is in modern trade, as you were saying. Sit with the finance. The finance people has to weigh the risks, of course, and has to see the credit limit for each customer. Has to see the credit days for each customer, has to see how long the organization can survive without cash or without getting money, and because you have people to pay, you have salaries, you have the utilities, you have everything. So you have to be to have has to be a complete risk analysis. I think so, risk benefit analysis and all that. Yeah.
Yes, I can echo also your
Yes.
voice, Nanis and Hamamsi, in that point. And it depends, as you said, Nanis, it depends on the market segmentation, how it looks like. Because if you have a market that, like where we are today in the Middle East, mostly you will find that the weight of the modern trade and the weight of the traditional trade, it's almost 50-50. So we are risking 50%. And it depends also on how you're treating your customer. If I'm talking about the risk zone, which is in traditional trade, how it looks like, how you are dealing with your retailers, how you identify your wholesalers, the gold, the silver, and the bronze,
Yes.
how you deal with them, because you have also to segment them, and you have to study them financially, as you said, Nanis,
absolutely.
because this will define, definitely will be a factor that will be embedded in your payment terms, how it looks like. Some
100%.
of the retailers, small retailers, you will work with them like cash and carry quickly, and some of them, when it becomes stronger, and as we speak about the strategies between SRM and CRM, it you can negotiate about the payment term. But it's not only one side. I keep saying this because it's, yes, from CRM side, you should have reduced the payment term, but from the other side, also from SRM, just to collect your cash, or just to that your cash flow is on the right way, you have also to negotiate with your suppliers, because the less that you give them, like the payment term, it will also enhance your cash flow. So it's from the customer side and also from the supplier side. So don't just look at my advice
Okay.
also, Anayat, just from both sides, if you want to survive and if you want to have sustainability. And if you have some challenges, I would say, from the customers, that rightly that they have payment on time challenges, you can come and review your risk analysis and the payment on term, and just you can reduce your payment terms accordingly, just to not risk any challenges, or just afford yourself for loans and have more interest, and it will definitely kill your bottom line, I would say. This is just my humble advice. Definitely.
Great.
So, Naris, can I want to ask you this question? I know that we have thousands of questions. I'm really so curious about the coming question. And we asked this question to many people, and honestly, I listened to many philosophies. So I would like to listen for your philosophy on that. It's all about SQ rationalization. I know that if you come back to organizations, you'll see that marketing, they want to have the biggest portfolio, availability everywhere, varieties, mix everywhere on the shelf itself. But the truth is that we have a limited space on shelf, right? And we have a limited space or share of shelf on the retailer side. So when it comes to SQ rationalization and the SQ, I would say assortment on the retail side, what is the philosophy that you use for SQ rationalization?
It's an excellent question, Ahmed, and I think it's a hot topic. It's a hot topic. I know it's a hot topic nowadays, because exactly what you said, the number of SKUs is increasing, the number of items are increasing, there are lots of innovation, there is pressure on the shelf, the physical shelf. Of course, the online shelf has its own challenges, but there are physical pressures on the shelf. And there is pressures as well on supply chain, and I think supply chain optimization and supply chain resilience is very important, especially as we recover from a big pandemic. Like, I know many countries are still under lots of pressure from a supply chain perspective and from availability perspective. I know people usually use SKU rationalization or SKU optimization interchangeably. I personally like to call it optimization. I don't like to call it rationalization, and I'll tell you why. To me, optimization is a must, and I think it's all about, in my opinion, it's all about driving growth. This is about driving sustainable growth and profitable growth. If optimization is only going to simplify supply chain, that's good. Of course, we all want supply chain to be simplified and to be efficient, more efficient. But it has to drive optimization of SKUs and items, has to drive at the end of the day sustainable and profitable growth for both parties, for the
Yeah.
customer and for the CPG. And I think this is the KPI, and this is how success looks like, and this is where the goal has to be very clear. That some of the other goals is simplification of supply chain. I know now lots of retailers are saying, if I focus on only the top sellers, I will have more on-shelf availability, which is good for me because I'm always running out of stock from the high velocity items. So it is good as well from a retailer perspective. But I truly think it's a very important, it's a very complex exercise, but it's very important exercise. And I think we shouldn't be CPG waiting for the retailer to knock our door to say, hey, I am doing, SKU optimization, please help me. I don't think we should do that. I think we should be proactively having this discussion internally and figuring out what does optimization look like that will be a win for customers and win for us as an organization. And I think in order to do that as well, it's really important to understand the categories. The categories are so different in the behavior of the consumer. I'll give you an example. If I'm a shopper going into a shelf and I'm looking at hair, for example, hair category, right? And I'm looking for a solution for my anti-dandruff. I mean, if I don't find an anti-dandruff, I'm not going to buy shampoo for all the hair, right? Like, I mean, I have a major problem, which is anti-dandruff. By the way, I don't have this problem, but I'm just giving an example. If I need something for anti-dandruff, then maybe the brand will be less important, but I need the solution. I need the shampoo that will help with my problem. However, if I'm a consumer shopping laundry, for example, and I love this brand, and I know this brand is amazing for cleaning my clothes, but I can't find the lemon, variant. I can only find the lavender variant. Probably, I'm more likely to buy because at the end of the day, I love the brand. I know the brand is good for me. I know it cleaned my clothes. I can live with the lavender variant versus the lemon variant, for example, or the flowers variant, or whatever it is. So I think a deep understanding needs to happen to understand the consumer tree, the loyalty data. If there is loyalty data, that absolutely loyalty data is a mine, like a mine of gold, a mine of diamonds. So if you have that, you absolutely need to use it, and you absolutely need to invest behind the analytics to get the insights. The other piece as well is that you need to understand the switching and the substitution, what the consumer is going to do. So that's an important piece. And my advice is to build, because it's very complex, like you need to look at velocity, you need to look at profitability, you need to look at uniqueness, right? If there is a unique item in the category, you want to keep it because it's very unique. You also want to keep in mind the strategic importance of this item, in different retailers, and some retailers have different strategies. So again, that's something you need to keep in mind of. Maybe an item is very small now, but we know that it's important for the development of this category, so we need to keep it, right? Because it is strategically important.
As marketing always says, strategic item, strategic product. We always
Exactly. But it's so important that some of the items might play a small role now, but in 2 years or 3 years, it's very important to have. So I think one, you need to involve the cross-functional for sure. Second, you need to have the dialogue and the partnership with the customer. Third, you need a good analytics and advanced analytics tool. And I know lots of people are now investing behind that, whether internally or externally, to have the right, because it's a very complex parameters and metrics, and you want to have the modeling or the forecasting of what's the before and after looks like. The other piece as well, if you can do it, is it's always good to pilot with small number of stores if you can. So if you have 100 stores, only start with 5, only start with 4, test and learn, and then go and apply for the rest of the market, because that will give confidence. And I think it's a dynamic thing. It's a dynamic process that has to take place. Like it's not a process you do once and then you don't think about it for 2-3 years. It's dynamic, it's changing, but it's so essential. And I think my message is, if you are in CPG, you have to take the first step. Don't let the retailers decide for you, because they will make their decision, and their decision you will not like. So it's better to collaborate with the retailers and be ahead of the game, and be proactive, and be transparent, and have your data analytics ready. Like this is another example where technology and machine learning can do marvelous things, that we can spend million hours on our Excel to try and figure it out, but then leveraging technology can help us, and can help us with modeling and forecasting that works.
Definitely.
If you allow me.
Yes, please.
I have not got all this for a long time. Thank you.
It's
you're welcome.
I loved what you say, Nannis. I think that you can write a book on these kinds of philosophy that you have based on your amazing experience. I believe, as you said, it's all about the strategy. And the strategy starts firstly, I would say, top down. So what is the business strategy? And then you can de-aggregate this into a category strategy. And from that category strategy, you will understand how to drive your SQs. And from this SQ, you can take it into channel strategies. And from channel strategy, you can put it into a retail strategy. And from that point, you can take your SQ optimization, as you said, or SQ rationalization, either this or this. And some people they think that when I have SQ rationalization, I should have the SQ rationalization at a total national level from the organization itself. No, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it makes sense even I can uh, rationalize some SQs on a specific stores because it gives me negative ROI, because the cost to serve there, it's really negative. So why I'm saying this, because when I was working in demand planning, I didn't understand why sometimes that the shopper marketing and the customer marketing, that they delist some of the SKUs that they have a great, I would say, sales in that point in some stores, because it gives negative ROI. So our understanding, it shouldn't be on a total national level, but it depends on the strategy, how you de-aggregate the strategy from the business till the retailer and the store level. This is the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And Ahmed, if I add, some retailers, I've seen some retailers having different optimization in different areas. So regional optimization becomes important. And again, you can't do that with an Excel file. Like you need to have a very advanced analytics. But
Yes.
think about a retailer that has in one city a very affluent market, rich families, high income, big families. Their
Mm,
optimization will be different than if they are in another city that is, maybe value is important, maybe smaller size of families, maybe high, like the demographics as well. Like who are you
sure.
serving? Are you
Mm,
serving seniors? Are you serving millennials? Are you serving, big families, small families, families who are with low income, high income? And this is the beauty about, using technology, because then you can have one retailer who has different optimization even. And I know supply chain people will come and tell me this is more complexity, but again, using the technology and using the machine, you can put a threshold so that you can have the discussion with your retailers that I will only give you that if the threshold is this, right? So
mm,
you're building scale and you're building efficiency in your factories, but also you're finding the balance where you are optimizing not only for customers but for consumers, for shoppers, because this is what they are looking for, right? So you're making everyone happy, and this is like a win-win-win: win customer, win
mm.
consumer, and win for CPG.
Organization. Yeah.
Great, great. That's really key, as you said, that collaboration between retailers and making use of information and technology. This is how people and how companies will win in the future. And the key, as you said, to win the consumer and to get what the consumer wants. This is how to win, and with high efficiency of supply chain, which is, of course, this is hard to achieve, but it's the way forward. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Nanisa, I think we can stay another 3 hours if,
Yes.
if we want, because yeah, I think time
It's
took
too late
us,
now for
and
you guys. It's like
Yeah, I
10 p.m.
think yeah.
no,
Time
we do
flies. We
apologize
can stay.
for our
Yes.
audience because we have
Yes.
many questions, but honestly, just we wanted to make use of your amazing experience about questions that we have. So we do apologize for our audience because we have
But
many questions.
for sure, we will take the questions and
Yes, sure.
offline. We will answer me, you, or even our guest, of course, Nannis, if she has time and can spare some time for our audience to answer, to take their questions offline. So, of course, due to the limitation of time, we thank everyone, of course, who joined us today from the audience and gave a lot of great questions. Our great guest, of course, Nanis, we cannot say thank you enough. Of course, a lot of great knowledge and values you shared with us today, really, and
Amazing.
it's an amazing episode. Yeah, we're honored to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to answer any more questions if you have any other questions from everyone. And thank you for joining. I know it's 10 p.m., so it must be late in many countries there. It's still 2 p.m. in Toronto, but thank
Yeah,
you for joining.
Thank you so
thank
much,
you very
Nanis.
much.
And hopefully that we can have another episode very soon. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
so